right, so welcome to our deep dive, into the world of AI agents. We're going to unpack this Google AI white paper. It just came out last month.
Yeah.
Agents, it's called.
Yeah.
And we've all wished for that. A digital assistant that can actually take action.
Yeah.
In the real world, not just understand our requests.
Right.
And that's what this whole deep dive is about. So.
This is such a cool area.
Yeah.
And I think this paper really lays out the vision well. We're not talking about just AI that can, write us poems or generate cool images, but AI that can actually reason, plan, and interact with the world in a much more sophisticated way.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with what is an AI agent?
Yeah.
And how is that different from large language model? Because the paper draws a pretty clear distinction.
Yeah, no, it's not just a fancy new name for the same thing. An agent is an AI application that can achieve a goal using tools. It's not just passively processing information, it's actively trying to solve a problem. Think of it like this. A language model might be able to write you a grocery list, but an agent could actually order those groceries online, schedule a delivery, and even make sure you have enough money in your account to pay for it.
Okay, so it's like the difference between having a recipe and having a personal chef who can actually make the meal for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the concept of tools come in, right? Which the paper emphasizes quite a bit. Tools are what allow the agent to actually bridge the gap between the digital world and the real world, and actually enabling it to interact with, things like APIs, data stores, external services.
Yeah, so it's like giving the agent a set of hands and feet so it can go out and actually do things in the world.
Right.
Not just be stuck inside the computer.
That's a great analogy. And the paper outlines 3 main types of tools: extensions, functions, and data stores. Each serve a different purpose, kind of like a chef having different knives for different tasks.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's break those down a little bit because I think this is where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah.
So first up, extensions. What are those all about?
So think of extensions as pre-built connections to APIs. It's like a universal adapter that lets the agent plug into different services. So let's say you want your agent to book a flight for you. It wouldn't have to understand all the intricacies of how the airline's API works. It can just use an extension for Google Flights, tell it where and when you want to travel, and the extension handles all the communication behind the scenes.
Okay, so the agent doesn't have to be like a master programmer to use these tools.
Right.
The extensions kind of simplify the process.
Exactly. It's like having a team of experts handling all the technical details so the agent can focus on the bigger picture, solving the problem at hand, and they've already developed extensions for things like Google Search and Google Maps, so you can imagine how powerful that is.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, so then what about these functions? How are those different from extensions?
So with functions, the agent suggests a specific function and its parameters to the client-side application, which then handles the execution of the API call. It's a way of delegating tasks that might be more sensitive or require more control. So for example, if you had an agent managing your finances, you might not want it to have direct access to your bank account. So a function could allow the agent to suggest a transfer, but you would have the final say in approving it.
Right, so it adds a layer of security and control.
Exactly.
To make sense, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information.
Right.
Okay, so then the last type of tool, these data stores, what role do they play in all this?
So data stores are like a vast library of knowledge that the agent can access. They can contain structured data like databases, or unstructured data like text documents or website content. So this allows the agent to actually learn and adapt to new information, even if it wasn't specifically trained on it.
Okay, so it's kind of like giving the agent the ability to do research,
right,
to go beyond just its initial training data.
Right. Which is crucial in a world where things are constantly changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and that actually leads into another really interesting concept that the paper highlights, which is this retrieval augmented generation, or RB.
RB.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So essentially, RB allows the agent to dynamically retrieve relevant information from a data store in response to a query. It's like having a research assistant who can instantly pull up the most relevant articles or documents to help the agent answer a question or solve a problem. So for example, imagine you ask your agent, what are the key arguments for and against universal basic income? Using RAG, the agent can scour through a data store of economic research papers and news articles to give you a comprehensive and up-to-date summary of the debate.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It's like giving the agent access to, the collective knowledge of humanity.
Right.
Okay, so we've got these 3 types of tools these extensions for like direct access to APIs,
Right.
functions for this more kind of controlled delegation of tasks,
Right.
and then these data stores for this kind of dynamic knowledge retrieval.
Right.
It seems like a pretty comprehensive toolkit for enabling these agents to, interact with the world. But how does the agent actually decide which tool to use in a given situation?
Yeah, that's where the brain of the agent comes in, right? The what the paper refers to as the model and the orchestration layer,
Yeah.
which we can get into next.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So yeah, choosing the right tool is crucial, and that's where the agent's kind of internal workings come into play. The model is essentially like the foundation right, providing that core intelligence and reasoning capabilities. It's been trained on these massive data sets, can understand language, generate text, make some basic inferences, but to really shine as an agent, it needs this orchestration layer.
Okay. So the model is like the raw processing power, and the orchestration layer is like the conductor that guides how that power is used.
Exactly. The orchestration layer is where the magic happens. That's what manages the agent's thought process, decides which tools to use, in what order, how to interpret the results. It's responsible for, breaking down these complex goals into smaller, manageable steps, kind of like a project manager for the agent.
So like, how does this orchestration layer actually work?
Yeah.
What's going on under the hood there?
So the paper delves into some really fascinating reasoning techniques that power this orchestration layer. Things like React, chain of thought, and tree of thoughts. These are all different ways of structuring the agent's internal decision-making process to make it more efficient and effective.
Okay, you know me, I love to get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah,
So let's unpack those a little bit. What's the gist of each of those techniques?
sure. So React, which is short for reason and act, is all about interleaving reasoning steps with actions. So instead of trying to plan everything out in advance, the agent will take an action, observe the result, and then reason about what to do next. It's a much more dynamic and adaptive approach, well suited for these real-world scenarios where things are constantly changing.
So it's like a learn by doing approach,
Right.
where the agent kind of adjusts its strategy based on the feedback it's getting from the environment.
Exactly. Now, chain of thought is a little bit of a different approach. That's focused on making the agent's reasoning process more transparent and explainable. So instead of just spitting out an answer, the agent generates a series of intermediate steps, kind of like a thought bubble, showing how it arrived at the conclusion. So this is helpful not only for debugging purposes, but also for building trust with users,
Yeah.
who want to understand how the agent is making decisions.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like giving the agent the ability to show its work,
Right.
which I think could be really crucial for, gaining acceptance in real world applications.
Absolutely. And then there's a tree of thoughts. This one's a bit more advanced. It allows the agent to explore multiple possible solutions in parallel. So instead of just following, this linear chain of thought, the agent can branch out, consider different options, and evaluate their potential outcomes. It's a more computationally intensive approach, but it can lead to much better solutions, especially for complex problems with a lot of variables.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's like giving the agent the ability to think strategically,
Right.
to consider different scenarios, weigh the pros and cons before making a move, almost like playing a game of chess,
Right.
thinking several moves ahead. Okay, so we've got these different reasoning techniques that are kind of powering this orchestration layer. We've got these awesome tools at the agent's disposal.
Right.
But how realistic is all of this? Can we actually build agents like this today?
Yeah, that's what I love about this paper, is that it doesn't just stay in the realm of theory.
Yeah.
It kind of bridges the gap between research and reality by introducing us to Vertex AI agents, which is this fully managed platform from Google that's specifically designed for building and deploying these production-grade agents.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Tell me more about this Vertex AI agents platform.
So it's essentially a one-stop shop for everything you need to create, train, and manage these sophisticated AI agents. It provides, pre-built tools and components, a really user-friendly interface for defining your goals and tasks, and even like a natural language interface for interacting with the agent.
Okay, so it's not just for hardcore AI researchers.
Right.
If developers with, maybe less experience in AI could potentially build powerful agents using this platform.
Yeah, exactly. It really democratizes the process, making it easier for a wider range of people to kind of harness the power of these AI agents. And to give you a concrete example, the paper walks through this case study of building a simple agent using LangChain and LangGraph, which are these two open source tools that are actually compatible with Vertex AI agents.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's dive into that example, because I always love to see things in action.
Sure.
What kind of agent did they build?
So they created an agent that can answer multi-step questions using both Google Search and the Google Places API. So imagine you ask the agent, who did the Texas Longhorns play in football last week, and what's the address of their stadium?
Okay.
That seems like a pretty simple question,
Yeah.
but it actually requires multiple steps to solve.
I can see that, yeah, you'd have to first figure out who they played and then look up the address of that team's stadium.
Right, so the agent first has to use Google Search to find the Longhorns' recent game schedule, extract the name of the opposing team, and then use the Google Places API to actually find the address of that team's stadium. So it's a pretty straightforward example, but it illustrates the power of combining these tools and reasoning to solve these real-world problems.
Yeah, I love how they break down that seemingly simple question into these discrete steps. It really highlights the power of these agents to handle tasks that would normally require a human to go and piece together, multiple sources of information.
Right. It's all about automating these multi-step processes, making them much faster and more efficient. And the paper also showcases a more sophisticated example using Vertex AI agents to build an agent that can manage a to-do list, schedule appointments, and even book flights.
Wow.
All through this natural language interaction.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like having a superpowered personal assistant that can actually take things off your plate.
Yeah.
Not just remind you about them. Okay, so we've gone from like the basic definition of an AI agent to exploring its architecture, the tools that it uses, and even these concrete examples of how to actually build them.
Right.
It's been a pretty comprehensive journey so far.
It really has, and we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible.
Yeah.
As these tools and techniques continue to evolve, we're going to see some even more impressive applications of AI agents in the future.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all the amazing possibilities, I think it's important to step back and consider
the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Like the ethics of all this.
Yeah, exactly. We need to make sure that these agents are actually aligned with our values and goals.
Yeah.
As a society, like what happens if an agent makes a decision that we don't agree with?
Yeah, who's accountable then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, the paper touches on this importance of transparency and explainability.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand why an agent made a particular decision, not just what decision it made.
So it's not enough to just trust the agent blindly. We need to be able to look under the hood and see how it's thinking.
Exactly. And that ties into this concept of human oversight as well. It's unlikely that we'll ever want to completely hand over control to these AI agents, especially for these really critical tasks.
Yeah.
So we need to find that right balance between automation and human intervention.
So it's like having a co-pilot rather than an autopilot.
Yeah.
Someone who can assist and advise, but ultimately the human is still in charge.
That's a great analogy, and it highlights the need for collaboration as well, right? Between AI researchers, developers, policymakers, and the public, We need to have these open and honest conversations about the potential benefits and risks of these AI agents and work together to make sure that they're used ethically and responsibly.
It's almost like we're writing a new social contract for the age of AI.
Exactly.
We need to figure out how we want to live and work alongside these intelligent machines.
Yeah, and that leads me to the final provocative thought I wanted to leave you with. We've talked a lot about agents interacting with humans, but what about agents interacting with each other?
Okay, now you've really got my attention. What do you mean by that?
So imagine a future where we have these specialized AI agents, each with their own unique skills and knowledge.
Yeah.
Collaborating to solve problems that are far too complex for any single agent or even a team of humans to handle.
Like agent chaining.
Exactly.
Like a network of AI brains working together in perfect harmony.
Exactly. Think about the possibilities. Agents working together to manage global supply chains, optimize energy grids, accelerate scientific discoveries, even tackle climate change.
Wow, that's a pretty mind-blowing vision.
Yeah.
It's almost like creating a superorganism
right?
Made up of these interconnected AI agents.
It's a fascinating concept, and it opens up all these new realms of possibility. But it also raises a lot of questions.
Right.
How do we ensure that these agent networks remain aligned with our values?
How do we prevent any unintended consequences? These are challenges that we'll need to address as we move further into this age of AI.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much ground from, the basic definition of an AI agent to this, potential for agent chaining.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And all the ethical considerations we need to be mindful of.
It has. It's been a pleasure kind of exploring this topic with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope our listener has found it as enlightening as we have.
I'm sure they have. And on that note, we'll leave you with that final thought. As AI agents become more sophisticated and interconnected, what kind of future will we create together? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.